Okay, this is July 8th, 1986. This is Joe, Todd, and Berenice Jackson, an interview with Mrs. Klein. And what's your first name?
Helen.
Helen Klein in Shattuck, Oklahoma.
Yeah. Do you need something heavy to put under that? There's some books laying in there.
Where were you born?
Huh?
Where were you born?
Lehigh, Kansas.
When's your birthday?
November the 25th. I was born November the 25th, 1898.
Who was your father?
Andrew Fiel. Spelled F-I-E-L. They didn't spell it right, but that's the way he had to go by.
And who was your mother?
Emma. Emma Fiel, I guess. Her name really was, isn't that funny? I can't think of the name, my mother's name.
It'll come to you.
Mm-hmm. Where was your father from?
From Russia, from Dreispitz, they called it. I don't know how you'd spell that in English. It means three corners. They had kind of like colonies they lived in, and theirs was kind of a three-corner shaped three-corner, and that was called Dreispitz.
Where was your mother from?
She was from Russia, and she was called, their place was called Shattuck. That's a Russian name. I wouldn't know how to spell it or anything.
How did the Germans get to Russia?
Oh, the Germans got to Russia. There was a German princess married a Russian, they called him Tsar, like we say a president, you know, they call him Tsar. She married a Russian Tsar. And Germany is a small country compared to Russia. And when she found out that there was so much land there laying that wasn't in use, you know, it was had a lot of timber. Why, she told her husband about it, and then they got to where they had some of the Germans move into Russia where they were living. And that's the way the Germans got started going to Russia.
I heard that the Russians promised the Germans certain things if they came over.
Well, I don't know about that. I never heard anything about that, but I know that because they didn't have much room in Germany, they were crowded there, and she found out that after she was married there, and there was so much room there in Russia, and land that wasn't no one lived on, so she just I don't know how anyway, that's the reason they started coming to Russia.
What type of house did you have in Russia?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know anything about that, because how would I?
Yeah. Tell me some stories that your father told you about Russia.
Well, I don't know much. He didn't say much about Russia. All that I know of, he said he was in the army. See, he was grown when he came over. He was in the army, and he said that those Russian soldiers, they couldn't tell. Now, I don't know how they marched, right, left, right, or whatever they called, you know, when they marched, and said they didn't even know what that was. So they went and took some kind of green, I think maybe wheat on one leg and something else on the other, and they'd call that instead of, and then they'd march that way. He said they didn't have any school or my dad didn't get any Russian school at all. He couldn't talk any Russian. The Germans kept their school up. He could read real good in German, you know. And
what did he do in the Russian army?
Huh?
What did he do in the Russian army, your father?
Oh, in the army, that's all I know. That's all I know.
Did they talk about the trip to America?
No, not that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a kid then, and I can't remember that he talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
I just know about when he was in the army there, that he told that.
Do you know why they came to Oklahoma?
Well, my dad he worked on the railroad at Lehigh, Kansas. And then this country here was opened for, what do they call it?
Settlement?
Yeah. It was called the Strip, but I don't remember what kind of strip.
Oh, the Cherokee Strip? The strip opening?
No, it's not the Cherokee. Anyway, it was opened here for settlement. And there was a lot of cattlemen here. They kept they had open range, the cattlemen did. And they didn't like it because they couldn't have it anymore then, you see. But you had to live here. You had to live on it or you couldn't keep the land.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my dad had to go back. There was nothing here. So he had to go back to Kansas for harvest. And of course my mother had a time then with us kids here. And
What did you live in when your dad went back? Did he have a house or a tent or?
you know, I was so small,
You just don't.
I don't remember, but I think they had kind of caves that they fixed to stuck in the ground because I don't know whether there's even a lumber yard or anything. If there was no lumber yard or anything near, I don't know where they got and I don't know when they built.
Yeah.
But I just know that
I was going to ask, why did the family go to Kansas, to Lehigh, Kansas?
I wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
It was just happened to come there. Maybe, well, I don't think my dad had any relatives there. Maybe some friends there.
Mm-hmm. When was the town of Shattuck established?
I wouldn't know. There was a man that came along the same time that my folks came. His name was Chores, and he had a farm close to Shattuck here, and he also started a store then here. And at that time, the stores, they had the grocers on one side and the dry goods on one side. They weren't like they have now, dry goods store and grocery store. And then later there was a man by the name of Becker came, and then there was another store established here. And I don't know just how, I was so little then, you know, I wouldn't know just how everything was.
Do you remember when the railroad came through?
Well, I think it was already went through here.
Oh, it's
That's
already-
the way they came. That is, my mother did. My father came down with in the wagon. He brought the horses and brought a plow, and they had the walking plows then. And the things, because there was nothing here, you had to bring things along. But my mother, she came on the train, and then I was 3 years old, and when I had a sister, she was about 9 months, year and 9 months younger than I was. And then there was a young man, he came with mother, and he was supposed to take care of me because she had the baby. And I know they came on the train, so there must have been a railroad here, or they couldn't have come.
Yes.
As a small girl, what chores did you do in the farm?
What chore, anything, everything. I helped my dad. I helped him fix the first fence we ever had here. And the first mother they pegged out, they brought 2 cows along from Kansas, they pegged them out. And then, man, I don't know how old I was when Dad put the first, he had the posts all set, and then he put the wire around it. And I had to go with him, and he'd stretch the wire No, he would take the steeple and put it in the post, and he'd hammer it down about halfway so he could still stretch the wire, and then he'd go and stretch the wire, and then I'd pound it in.
How did he stretch the wire?
Huh?
How did he stretch the wire?
Well, he had a wire stretcher, and he stretched it with that. And that's the way, that's all I know.
What are your first memories of Shattuck when you first came to town?
Memories?
Yeah.
There was no town. There wasn't anything. It just started then afterwards. And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't get around like kids do now.
Yeah.
We were 7 miles from Shattuck, southwest of Shattuck. And we didn't get around.
What was the nearest town to you?
Huh?
What was the nearest town? If Shattuck wasn't here, what was the nearest town that you would go?
Oh, well, we didn't go any place. I just, I guess I don't know. That's all I know. There's no nearest town.
Where did your father go to buy your groceries?
I don't know.
Would it have been Gage?
Well, no, Gage wasn't here then at all. No, there was nothing. This was just a big old
pasture.
Prairie.
Prairie.
Would it be Higgins, Texas? Higgins?
No.
Okay.
I don't know anything about that because I was just, I was just 3, 4, 5 years old.
Do you remember Statehood Day?
Huh?
Statehood Day? The day Oklahoma became a state in 1907.
1907? No, I was too small about that to remember that. Even if I did, I didn't remember.
When did you start school?
Where did I start school? Well, they built a schoolhouse here. Then, by the time I was 6, that I was ready to go to school. Why, we had a schoolhouse about a little over a mile north of where we lived.
What was the name of it?
Hempel School.
Hempel.
And I've even got a picture of it yet, but it's all torn, and if it was good, I could give it to you to put in there. But
How many students were in the school?
I wouldn't know.
Remember your teacher's name?
Not the first one. I don't.
Can you tell me how one teacher handled all the different grades?
I don't know. They just handled them. They had to. They just had to.
Was there any resentment towards you during World War I, being German?
Not that I know of. Not that I know.
Were all the students in the school German?
No, that's mixed. English and German.
Did you speak English then?
Well, I really began to learn when I went to school. It didn't take me long ago to learn it. You know, kids learn real quick.
What about the 1920s?
Huh?
1920s. What were you doing in the 20s?
1920.
That would be the flu epidemic. You remember the flu epidemic
Yes.
of 1918? Did you folks have the flu?
All had it, but my dad, and he was kind of weak. And yet he didn't get the flu, and we all had it.
Well,
And the doctor that we had here, he was in war. They had drafted him.
what doctor was that?
Yeah, O.C. Newman.
O.C.
He's the one that started the hospital here.
Yes.
And he was in war. So Mother, she got us all through. She didn't lose any of us.
Well, that's good.
And when Doctor came back, he said, "How did you ever do it, Mrs. Fiel?" She said, "Well, I greased their chests and kept them good and warm in bed." And she said, "I opened the top of the window about that far." He said, "You know, that was the best thing you could have done. And here we can't open the windows." I can't understand it. To let the fresh air in and the foul out, you see. Well, I don't know how Well, I guess fresh air will come in from the top too. It usually comes in at the bottom.
How did the Depression affect you and your family?
I don't remember. We kids didn't notice it if it affected anything or not. We.
That would be in 1929, when the banks all went broke.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know anything about it then when the banks went broke or anything. It didn't bother me at all.
Do you remember the Dirty 30s?
And I don't remember just the dates of different things. I
The
couldn't.
Dust Bowl days?
I should say so. I remember the Dust Bowl.
Tell me about the dust. What does a dust storm look like?
Well, I tell you, when the dust storm would come, it would look like a wall was coming. You couldn't look beyond it at all. It just looked like a wall would come. And then it would be so dusty that you couldn't see.
How'd you keep it out of the house?
Huh?
How'd you keep the dust out of the house?
Couldn't keep it out. We had to afterwards clean it again because, I remember one time, and it was Easter Sunday. And that was after I was married. And we had gone east to some folks there to visit. And when we were coming back home, when we were about a quarter mile from home, I looked towards the north and I said to my husband, "My land, look there." It was just like a wall coming. And you couldn't look beyond the wall at all. And, he hurried. We got home right quick, put the car in the garage and went to the cellar. And we had a school teacher there that roamed with us. And she was laying on the bed. And I went in there and told her, just quick, let's go down the basement. She put on her shoes. She had some new shoes, and she didn't even unbutton them. She don't know how she got in them. And we all went down to the basement. And you could hear the calves bawling and the chickens that going on, And I'm telling you, after we came back from the basement, the house was just like you'd taken 30. It was terrible.
You could write your name anywhere.
Oh, yeah. We didn't do that, though. We had enough without putting our fingers in the dirt and writing.
What about World War II?
I'm telling you, I don't remember much about those wars. I just didn't.
Did you have any relatives in them? Any brothers or?
No, we were lucky that way. My brothers didn't have to go to war. They were, which didn't have to go. My husband didn't have to go either.
Who was your husband?
Reinhard Klein. He was 12 years older than I am.
Oh.
This boy that brought you in here, he's my stepson, of course. I raised them, and they feel like my own children.
Yes.
I have another one. He had 2 children. I didn't have my children of my own. But they feel like my own because I raised them.
Well, do you have any other stories about Russia that you've heard?
Yeah, I wasn't interested in Russia. I never just what I happened to hear, And my husband was 16 years old when his folks came from Russia. And I always, when I grew up, I wanted to learn all kinds of languages. That was mine. And I'd ask him, and he couldn't tell me this, he couldn't tell me that. And I said, "And you were 16 years old and you don't know?" He said, "If you'd been there, you wouldn't know either." And then he told me about how they didn't have any school, the Russians, and he said they did have one Russian teacher one time, and he was so, he'd get so mad he'd go and bump his head against the blackboard. His own head, he'd get so mad. And one time a boy did something and he said what he did and it didn't amount to anything. He run on top of the benches, or not the benches, but the desks, and hit that boy and said the blood just started out of his ear. So in just a little bit, we'd call them school board, were there and they fired him. And so they didn't get any Russian. I just know a few words in Russian. How do you know that?
Well, when your father was in the Russian army, did he leave? How did he get out of the army to come to the United States?
Oh, well, they was just like they did here after the war, where they all come home.
I see.
And he was the only boy in the family, and he was the youngest boy. His mother died when he was 10, and his father died when he was 12.
Well. Was that here in the United States?
No, in
Russia.
Yeah.
Well, he was certainly left an orphan. Were there any girls?
Yes, there was girls, and in Russia they didn't, when they got married, just move out and move there, and they seemed to kind of live together.
Yeah.
That is, I think, now I don't know, I guess the boys stayed in the home with their families. I don't know. But they lived more together. And
your father married in Russia then?
No, he didn't marry in Russia. My mother was only 7 years old.
Oh, in Russia.
When she
I didn't understand.
When she came from Russia, they were here a lot longer,
Did he bring his sisters with him?
No. They were all older than he was. They didn't. I think one of his sisters later moved to South America. That's all I know. We never did hear from them or anything.
Well.
Do you have any more questions, Miss Jackson? Do you have anything?
After we get through, I will think of some things to ask you.
Okay, well.
This has been quite interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, this is July 8th, 1986. This is Joe Todd, an interview with Molly Bouse in Okeen, Oklahoma.